So welcome everyone to Democracy 3.0. We are a group of people who are innovating open democratic processes in search of a collaborative consensus. Um, starting with a group of individuals with diverse viewpoints, and how do we build a consensus that everyone is willing to act together on? And the goal ultimately is to use that unity to have some effect in the world, such as as a group of as a block of swing voters. So today we have Nissan is going to be presenting about sociocracy, which I think is very much relevant to what we're trying to do. So Nissan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Eddie. Again, my name is Nissan, and I'm representing the New York People's Assembly, new political party of New York City that's one for the people. Today, I'm going to be presenting our governance structure, which we use is called sociocracy. As you can see on the screen. So these are sociocracy essentials. The goal here is to try to quickly explain how sociocracy is different from the traditional methods of governance, and also how this gives more power to the people. So this is a brief introduction to sociocracy and how it differs from traditional organizational structures. First, let's get through the traditional corporate structure that entrenches power at the top. The idea of society is to decentralize that power. As you can see, corporations work to serve only a small group of people. They make decisions at high levels, and they work down below, going down level by level. Workers don't really exercise or have any control over the decisions of the corporation. The hierarchy in a traditional company is first the shareholder, then the board of directors, then your C-suite, which is your CFO, CEO, and COO. Then you have the upper management, followed by middle management, and then finally down to the staff, which has absolutely no say in the matter. The few leading the many. The ideal setup for the most corporate entities is to have the few leading the majority of workers. Direction of corporations comes from smaller and smaller groups. This leads to a culture of self-pretend at the top of the organization, and ideas are often, viewed threatening to their long-term goal. It's not good, so it threatens their power. The few are leading the many, and they are abstract from day-to-day operations of the organization because they don't really do the work, so they have no. So the sociocracy structure is fundamentally completely different. It flips that upside now. With sociocracy, the power is decentralized by spreading out decisions into groups called circles that operate semi-autonomously. Circles focus on narrow scopes to complete specific tasks that help the organization reach the aim or the main purpose. Circles cross-link with delegates to facilitate two-way communication between them. So that way each circle knows what each other circle group is doing. Circles are completely horizontal. That means they're not top down, they share equal power. And they are linked through delegates. Circles spawn out of necessity. They spawn organically. Members of an existing circle identify work that needs to be done. They draft a proposal to accomplish that work, and they get volunteers to fill those roles. The mandate is the key to the circle's existence. It needs to have a specific aim. All mandates operate in conjunction with the aim of the entire organization. So they all have to comply with this single thing. Circle formations. Circles form organically. A circle is a horizontal authorized by mandate on the aim within a specific domain. It can only have power in a certain field. Circles are delegated from the parent circle. So it's big circle into small circles. The mandate is the document that references to why the circle needs to spin up, why it needs to exist, and it must contain the aim, domain, and membership, and a process for review. The aim clearly defines what the circle will work on to further the aim of the entire organization. The domain is a clear list of circle activities and decision-making authority, the sphere of influence they have in making decisions. Specific to ensure productivity does not overlap with other existing circles. Leadership and members, initial membership of the circles, including the people filling required leadership roles. And then the review process, a defined way for a circle to report back its work and the frequency of said reports. After a circle forms, it has a specific purpose to follow to ensure it fulfills its aim. The leadership role facilitates the circle's operation by conducting its meetings and delegating tasks to its members. The assigned delegates foster communication between the linked circles. And we have 5 specific roles in sociocracy. The required leadership roles is 1, a delegated coordinator, as responsible for ensuring the circle is acting in accordance with its aim. It also acts as the link between the parent and the child of the spawn circles. Then you have the delegate. The delegate is responsible for participating in both circles, the parent and the child, and it supports the communication between the child to the parent. The facilitator is responsible for setting up agendas for each meeting and conducting the meetings with the governing principles of sociocracy in mind. They'll be similar to a chair. Secretary is responsible for collecting, organizing, storing, and proposing and publishing the meeting minutes of each circle's meeting and additional work product of materials produced by their circle. So basically, they deal with all the documentation and whatnot. And then finally, we have a required working member, because all these other 4 roles are, going to be incredibly busy just running the meetings and the actual circle activities that you need a worker bee, per se. So, we one dedicated worker. Each circle requires at least one of the work members to act as a task lead responsible for completing the tasks that's actually assigned. These tasks are defined by the circle's domain and their mandate. Checklist for spawning a circle. Before a parent circle is authorized a child or delegated circle, this checklist must be fulfilled by the proposed mandate. 1, is the aim clear? How will the circle work benefit the entire organization? Is the aim aligned with the organization's aim? Is the domain clear? What authority is the circle asking for, and what decisions will it make? The leadership roles defined. Who is responsible for the circle operation and adhering to its mandate? And the membership defined. Who are the working members? How will the circle accomplish its task? And finally, report evaluation timeline defined. Has the mandate defined how often reports are given to the parent circle? When will the mandate be reviewed to ensure that its aim has been fulfilled? Meeting process. Sociocracy runs meetings differently than traditional parliamentary authorities like Robert's Rules of Order. Meetings typically fall into 2 categories and serve different purposes. You have the policy meeting, meetings that are conducted to receive reports, explore, and decide on proposals made by working members of the circle. Proposals are akin to motions in other meeting structures, but rather than saying yay or nay to each motion or amendment outright, we hold rounds of discussion to explore and integrate objections before making informed decisions about consent. Then you have the operational meetings. These are meetings where work gets done. Working members report on the task previously assigned, and then the group decides on the necessary steps, and any new tasks are assigned to the lead. And the circle repeats until all the work is completed. There's a proposal process. Once the discussion tunes the proposal and leads to informed decision about consent. So the first thing we have is have the understanding. We need to understand what we're talking about. So what is the context? What are the underlying needs? What are we trying to do here? And explore. It's picture forming, proposal tuning. It's like we're crafting, getting it nicely needed down. And then you have the integrate objections. So people may not like something, so you want to understand what they're trying to get at and see if we could work around those objections and address any concerns that anybody might have. And then try to track it and put it in there. And finally, we have the consent process, which we make sure is we have a round to clarify any questions, make sure everybody understands what's being proposed. Then we have an exploratory round where we make reactions of what's being proposed, so everybody gets their opinion. And then lastly, they decide. They have a round to decide whether they consent or object to the proposal. Rounds lead to informed decisions. Informed decisions lead to approval by consent. consent versus consensus. By consensus, I must convince you that I am in the right. By consent, you ask whether you can live with the decision. Members discussing an idea in consent-based governance commonly use the threshold of if if idea is good enough to try and safe enough, good enough for now and safe enough to try. This is a clear distinction because it ensures that all objections are based on the aim of the circle and not organizations, not emotions. Rounds are essential. During a round, a facility engages each working member of the circle to participate in the topic at hand. Each member is chosen to speak in turn until all voices have been heard. Members do not interrupt with retort or interjections with rebut while other members are speaking. All members have equal footing and opportunity to participate before a member speaks for a second time. Inclusive decisions. In some meeting structures, participants are required to step forward to speak about items on the agenda. This leads to valid feedback being left behind because some members may not feel comfortable speaking out on their own. Opinions in the minority are often left out. When everyone is given the floor equally, people relax and speak their mind with less resistance or little resistance. We want to hear the minority opinion. Minority opinion is very important. The focus is on the minority opinion. Any member may raise an objection, or consent is only granted when there are no remaining objections to a proposal. All objections are heard and discussed in rounds. Amendments to proposals are integrated during the process. If a proposal leads to an impasse, that means a consent that's not gained due to a remaining paramount objection, the proposal is sent for an additional tuning before being raised. Now, a paramount objection is one of two things. It's going to be explained later. If a proposal tuning, if a proposal does not receive consent, the member bringing proposals should not be discouraged. Tuning is a process where a working member meets with others outside of the meeting to workshop their proposal. It is also possible that a proposal is ill-timed, and waiting for the appropriate time to bring it up may grant consent with minimal additional tuning. So are we ready to give this a try? Our party is using sociocracy to self-govern. You are empowered to participate. To help you understand the possibilities of sociology, we have compiled a visual aid to show potential scale of the party organization. So here we have the central circle that's in the middle, and all circles form around that central circle, and those circles in themselves have a round of circles. Each delegated circle forms organically based upon the needs of the parent circle, and our party structure, central structure, the main governing body. Delegated responsibility will become parent circle to enhance productivity by having now aims. Small and small groups of people doing the work, and then going out to the broader collective. When you got once a located empowerment as the member of the party, as a member, you're empowered to be integral in the part of the success. You empowered to pull new ideas and circles as necessary. You are empowered to check and balance everything the party does. You are empowered to feel validated through your participation. We care as basically we covered most participation. Not donations, participation. Okay, those are some additional resources. And let me stop showing that. Now I want to pay attention to this. A quick introduction. So sociocracy was founded in the 1980s. All participants have a voice, no one's ignored. Continuous empowerment of every proposal. It's a flat organization with interlinked circles. Circles are double linked for information flow, and elections are by consent. selection without objection. There's again the sociocracy the Delegated Circles. Circles basic governance is the purpose, the domain, the clarity to find membership roles and the terms. And in the roles, we got secretary, facilitator, delegator, coordinator, and the member. Also, we have ad hoc roles, filled as needed as tasks are defined by each circle. Now, as you can see, there's a representation of the double link. You have the parent circle where the coordinator goes in as a delegated circle, and then from the delegated circle, you have the delegate to the parent circle. So consent basis for this information. Every circle has an aim for each circle member. An objection means I can't achieve the circle's aims like this. Decisions are made if there's no objections. So we have 3 layers. We have what I would love to do, your personal preference, your idea. What may not be your idea, but what I'm okay to work with, what I can tolerate. It's like, this is not how I would do it, but I can live with it. And then finally you have, I can't do what you asked me to do. I cannot work like this. Okay. Now, like I said, there's 2 types of paramount objection. This is type A paramount objection, where you cannot do the work. Consent reach via rounds. We explained that already. And I'll get to that. Yeah. These are some additional sociocracy sources. Oh, what's my power? Oh, and I didn't see what slide. I must mess the slide with the paramount objection. The second paramount objection is if this is against the circle's aim. If the proposal is being made that's against the circle's primary aim, then it is ways for a paramount objection. So here's the sociocracy pros and cons as we've seen so far. Pros, it allows everybody to be heard. Anybody likes to be heard. The only problem is it's a much slower process because you have a lot more people. The more people you have, the more time it takes for everybody to have their voices heard. So it's much slower. It's excellent for small groups so far. Very little problems with small groups, but it struggles with scaling. So once you get to the 15 to 18 range, it becomes harder to manage and becomes less effective. It empowers everyone to take action. Does everybody have not only have a say, but in order to actually to give you, if you don't have to keep asking permission, it just empowers you to do work yourself. But this also allows for a single person to essentially filibuster, by raising a paramount objection or continuously talk forever, and if that's not addressed. It makes for very deliberative writing. You have a lot of voices in writing, and you get to very specific language because we look for clarity. But it does not do well when you're given multiple options, as proposals only one proposition out of many, and so the first person who proposes has the power. And normally what would happen would be, if you have an objection, they'll normally ask you, do you have a counter proposal? Do you have your own idea? It brings people together on common issues, but it gets hung up when you have controversial topics. So on topics where people agree, not much of a problem. If people disagree, it's going to take a while. And then you got the decentralization of power. It prevents a single point of failure from happening. So that way, if one of the circles is compromised, it does not compromise the whole structure. The problem is the weakest link is the coordinator delegates, as they require to be in multiple meetings, both for the pound and the child circle. They essentially double up the work, and as they join more circles, that work exponentially rises. So that becomes a point of failure there. And they're the only ones that share information between the circles. Okay. And before I go on, I'd like to ask, does anybody have any questions? Any questions at all?
How do I become a circle?
You become a circle by going to the central circle and stating that you have you have a need for the circle, in which you would draft the mandate. Once you draft the mandate would then be reviewed by that central circle or by the parent circle. And if that mandate is accepted, then you would form the circle.
And where is the central?
The central circle is the start of the organization,
Okay.
the core of the organization.
And that started, right?
Yeah, that'd be the seedling group. That'd be the people that first come together to do work.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? That was a good question, by the way. Okay. So what I just shared with you was New York's sociocracy. And what I'd like to show you now is an alternative version of sociocracy, a hybrid version used by the People's Party of Washington. This is their proprietary D3 model. Oh, I gotta stop sharing. Bring up. Anybody can see that? You see that? It's working?
Yes.
Okay. So this is D3, dynamic deliberative democracy. It's a combination between a hybrid between representative democracy and sociocracy. As you can see, it's a power structure inside a circle that's broken up. Inside you have the interest representation wing, the organizational representation wing, and geographic representation wing, all in the center of the state committee, the state organizing committee, coordinating committee, I'm sorry. Okay, it's consent-based, but most of their meetings do consent-based governance. They have circles. And circles are working groups, and circles formed by identifying what needs to be done, and we should undertake, and meet together to assume responsibility to accomplish it. Existing circles identifies the need to form a new circle and fills it. Now, what makes this, one of the things that makes this unique is instead of having just a central circle, they have a coordinated circle, where all the coordinators from the other delegate circles form a separate circle called the coordinator circle. Party Basics Hub, the initial hub of working members would be the meeting messaging, the hub development actions, organization infrastructure, regenerative culture, outreach, onboarding IT candidates, administration, platform, and governance. As members take on different roles of the hub circle, will meet as a group, and the individuals meet in parent circle, and their chose work until the local circle can develop. Here we get our first look at these are the roles and outlines of the people doing them. Chair is Mark Mixon, vice chair is Jamin Mason, and the treasurer is Rebecca McNeil. And you got all these other people filling up the roles. Now, what's unique about the D3 model is that it has a multi-linking system. Okay, it doesn't have just the dual link. Here, link 1, coordinated leaders of voluntary circles meet to share information. Link 2, delegates represent the parent circle of the group, or the CC joins the circle. Link 3, the regenerative culture working delegate to other working groups for facilitation members, development, and education. And link 4 is cross-mandate circles are formed of members from each working group. And finally, the 5th is a continuous mandate improvement process. So as you can see how links 1, 2, 3, and 4 operate. This is a very comprehensive thing, so I'm just skipping through a lot of it because I don't want to take my time. Okay, so you got the continuous mandate improvement linking methods, circle working groups, draft mandates, parent group discusses and consents. And you got quarterly reports, rep reviewing the joins of mandate improvement, convention mandate of circle, mandates reviewed by other working groups annually, and SC mandate feedback circle. We use the circle working group structure to provide access to any members wishing to participate and provide voice and vote to people based on not just their geographical location, but also by their essential communities of their immutable traits and interests and their chosen work within the party organization. We are a consent-based organization builds community through hearing all the voices and deliberating together continuously for improving and communication links by defaulting to rank direct democracy in board representation. Decision maximizes the representation of voice of all. So they first they hear all the voices and then they have an actual vote, which is different than democracy. This wing of the organization has two elements: regional operational hub and organization working group. So they're split up into different wings. There's 3 wings in each of these groups. So you have the geographic wing, the interest representation wing, and the organization wing. And this all ends up in the golden triangle of the state organizing committee, which is the mission guiding circle, the operation coordination circle, and the public advisory circle. The public advisory circle is an outside recommendation group to the public, so they can make give advice to the board circle. The operation coordination circle is just, again, group of coordinated circle that will come and delegate each one. And then finally, there's a mission guidance circle at the top. And these are the main leadership circle. Okay, that was a lot. Any questions?
Who figured this out?
I'm sorry, can you repeat what you said? I didn't catch it.
Who figured this out? Was it a group or an individual?
This is the form of the People's Party of Washington. This is their system.
Oh, okay.
It's actually in effect right now.
It's in effect right now. Okay.
Yes.
And that's Jimin.
Yes, Jamin, Mark Mixon, and Rebecca McNeil. Is there any other questions?
Nissan, I'm curious about like your experience, working within this structure. Like, what is it? What is it like on the ground?
I can't really speak for D3 because I've only been to 2 Washington meetings, and I don't have enough experience inside Washington's actual structure to make an informed say of my opinion yet.
Yeah.
It is far more. I mean, it is a very comprehensive system, and as far as I can say, hey, I've got work done. They are officially registered organization. They have a 501c3 that is set up. So it is in effect working. That's as best I can say so far. As far as regular sociocracy, I've been in many meetings in sociocracy meetings, and many of the pros and cons I listed again were from personal experience.
Right.
It is a much friendly environment. It's much easier once you actually get into it. It does take a while though, because of the deep indoctrination of the top-down system is so ingrained that it does cause a bit of dissonance when you're trying to operate outside in that circle, and it takes a time to learn and time to get used to it. I often found myself trying to ask somebody for permission, like trying to find who I need to ask permission to do something for, instead of just being empowered to go do it myself and then someone said, hey, I did this, how do you like it? And you wouldn't continue doing this. So it took a while. It took maybe a good 1 or 2 months to like get that.
Yeah.
Just want to stop sharing now. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, so let me just, you were just presenting this to us just to show us kind of what you guys have been doing, just to see if it springs any ideas for what we might do with our project. Was that kind of the whole point here?
Yeah, I
Well,
invited Nissan to present about sociocracy. It sounded interesting and thought that it might be interesting for us to look at.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd seen Nissan present this at the North Carolina People's Party meeting a week or so ago. And I was pretty sure Eddie and TC would find it pretty interesting like I did.
You know, I liked it.
I'm glad. So once again, sociocracy is still kind of a newer system. It was conceived over like 200 years ago, but it's only been recently implemented about 40 to 20 years. So a little longer than that, but so it's still relatively new in human history, in human society. It's the first horizontal structure of power, other than the direct top-down structures that we're all used to.
Well, sort of. It's deeper, more complex, and better organized for like the information age with more complex, larger structures. But it's still based on the fundamental concepts of sortition, which is how the Greeks did democracy long before the U.S. was ever a thing. So, yeah, I would say it's a modern version of the original version of democracy. It has the additional complexities needed for the modern age, but I wouldn't say that it's brand new. I'd say that it's actually standing on really solid foundations.
Okay,
I was
an
curious
interesting
about,
viewpoint.
I was gonna say, I'm curious about the parent-child relationship. Is that like a new group forming and then they become autonomous at some point?
So child circles, or what we call delegated circles, spawn out of like a need to basically hand down more tasks. So if certain tasks need to be delegated downward, and for a specific purpose, they'll get ever more specific, then you would send people to delegate to do that particular task, and they'll have their own circle. So for example, you have a tech circle, right? And then there's different roles inside tech. Tech covers a very swath of things, from administration to technical support to maintenance. So each one of those would have their own subcircle, be a group dedicated specifically for administration, and then there'll be another delegated circle specifically for maintenance, and another technical circle for technical support.
So this is an opportunity for many people to become connected through task and service.
That's correct, yes.
And
Each one will then be, delegated the authority to handle their sphere of influence, so they don't have to continuously go back and forth to like actual mention something. They're just empowered to do it. Like if with IT support, you just send the people to IT support, and people IT support figure out how they best do their job. They're not dictated how they do their job.
So, two things. One is that I think the bottom up versus top-down coordination is really interesting. And you know, probably a few months back, you know, we heard about I think it was the Swedish Pirate Party, and you know, their concept of swarm organization. One of the ideas was that you know, like sort of what you were talking about, Nissan, like you know, in a traditional organization, like everything needs permission. And in a swarm organization, if you think about it as a flat collection of individuals, and everybody is in charge of their own time and energy, fundamentally, then you don't need to you know, ask somebody above you for permission to do something. If you feel like this is the right thing to be done, then you just do it. And so like the rule of thumb, like I guess for a group our size is, you know, if two people agree on something, then you know, you can just do it. You don't have to come to the group and ask for permission. That's one thing that just comes up. And another thing that comes up is that for me, I'm really interested in controversial decisions. You know, how do you resolve controversy? And you know, lately I've been thinking about how, you know, if you think about all of the decisions or policies that you make, you know, almost everything is in order to attain some other goal. And at the very bottom of that, you know, of that sort of structure of goals is probably sort of like a basic human value, something like truth or equality or justice, something that we figure is a good thing in and of itself, and does not need a reason for being attained. And you know, and most of those values are pretty universal. And so if that's the case, I think that a lot of disagreements and controversy come from different perspectives, different beliefs about reality, about, you know, if you took you know, truth is great, but truth is not something that you can, like, you know, do. It's not something, okay, we value truth, now what do we do about that? And then, you know, so when you you know, I think that controversy arises when, you know, you go from a value to some policy or some decision about that value, and then different people will have different ideas about what the effect of that will be. So it's sort of like reality testing. That's just sort of what something that brought up for me.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great valid point. This is a discussion of, you know, both the difference between objective reality and personal reality, you know, because everybody, you know, sometimes in this day and age, people are actually arguing what objective reality actually is, you know. So yeah, so in sociocracy, a lot of times what I find is that when people interact, the longer they interact, the clearer things get. And I find a lot of times a lot of people be dis like disagreeing, but in disagreeing, but their disagreements are actually not really a disagreement. They're both agreeing to do different things, but they end up talking past each other because they have a different understanding of what each other is saying. And on the other flip side of that, I've also had conversations where people agree to something and they tend to agree to it because it sounds correct, but then when you know the foot hits the, you know, when foot hits the road or whatever, and put into practice, they really like, this is not really what they thought they agreed to. So it's very important for us give a clarifying, you know, that's why it's so important to do clarification on, you know, what you're actually talking about. And then there's it goes to whole deprogramming, and depending on, you know, what the belief is or what the topic is, it's going to take a long time for deprogramming. I mean, we've seen this happen, you know, God damn it, his name escapes me, but there's a very famous black guy who went and deprogrammed a lot of Nazis.
Oh,
Forgive me, I forgot his name.
Yeah,
think, you
yeah,
know,
he did a big TED talk on it, and he's really good at it. I've seen it before. Yeah, really effective. And he's not. Other people have done TED talks on a similar thing, like they were former Nazis, and now they go and they talk people down, and like the one-on-one conversation is a really, really important piece of that. Um, the trick, the thing I want to do is catch it on camera, and preferably live, and show it to the world. That's really hard because they don't often want to talk to you that way, but that's what I want to try to do.
yeah. So, like I said, I find the biggest thing is exposure, and it seems like we have an internal thing, due to our tribal nature, that as we get going more and more exposure, people slowly get adopted into the tribe. Because initially, when people meet, they're like two separate tribes, but then as they have exposure, they'll start getting on the same link, and then that way they start seeing each other's side, and then it comes there. So I think it's like this, just my opinion. You know, I'm not a college educated on this particular subject, but the way it appears to me is that uh once we get more attached and bring them and seeing as part of your tribe, then all those other things like start to go away and those barriers get breaking down. And a lot of stuff has just to deal with through indoctrination, because a lot of people have a belief or believe they have a belief. I better say that way. Uh, and they don't really know what the belief is. It's more of an identity. I say this from personal experience. I was born and raised Roman Catholic, and I had to say I truly didn't understand. I thought I did understand, but I truly did not understand what being a Roman Catholic is. I remember one day when I went to school, it was high school, and they had a special guest come into school and actually take us to different religious places and to learn about the religions and stuff like that. And the thought of you being able to change your religion was a foreign thought to me, because I thought you're born into religion, like that was an identity. So once I went and actually was exposed to all the other religions and look at all the different types of thoughts and views and stuff like that, then it opened me up. And the one that really spoke out to me was Buddhist religion at one point, because I was having problem classifying that as a religion. It was like, this is more of a way of thinking, a way of thought. And because the Buddha, it's not technically a god, because he was an actual man. The Sautama Gupma, which is the Buddha, was a man. In fact, was basically born to royal or noble family, and he went out and he was apparently prophesied to one day become either a great king or a great religious leader. And his father, being the king, wanted him to be king, so he tried to keep the Buddha away from all the outside world and just train to be a king. That didn't actually end up happening. Gupma actually did go out to the outside world and found all the suffering, and then went out to find out how to best live life. And then that's all of Buddhism is his method of finding the best way to live. So I'm like, that's more of a philosophy than a religion to me, because a religion is just like a belief in like gods, that have certain rules for some arbitrary reason, instead of you going out and being empowered to like find your own way of living, and this is like a guide to how to do it. So that's my own personal experience. I now have my own years of thinking about it, so like that I have my own thoughts and beliefs, very complex things.
I'm curious that you live in New York City and you're very connected to the Washington People's Party. And I know that Brian sees the people in New York as he drives up and down the coast. And I'm just curious what your relationship is between the groups.
Oh, well, that's easy. You see, we met People's Party of Washington through the UPA, and Mark actually came to our meetings and is the one that suggested sociocracy to and brought the idea of sociocracy to the New York, what was the New York People's Party is now the New York People's Assembly. And we were actually working on bylaws at the time. And we had the standard top-down bylaw structure. And one of the main topics, the topic that I was really concerned with, is the idea of holding accountability and having accountability mechanisms built into bylaws in this top-down system, holding power to account. So when he brought up the concept of sociocracy, it's kind of like threw everything out the window, because it's like, well, we have a system that don't have accountability problem because it doesn't have a power concentration system. So we don't have to worry about power getting concentrated if we could keep it, decentralized. Much like I was like the idea of decentralized finances from crypto. I'm also a big kind of old-fashioned technocrat which likes decentralization. So it really spoke to me.
Sass. Sass is.
Yeah. Anyway, I'd like to thank you, Eddie, for having me on and having me have this presentation. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope it was eye-opening, and I hope
Yeah.
it was entertaining.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd really appreciate you doing this presentation for us. Thanks, Nissan. Yeah.
Thank you, Nissan. I enjoyed it, and my issue is anything that I see, I want to do it. So it's like, where's my circle? And
Yeah, I'm like that, TC.
I definitely noticed that about UTC. You get so excited right away. You're like, let's do it. You're not the only person. There's a guy on Twitter that, like, anytime I come up with any idea or anything, he's like, we need to implement this immediately. We need to get every single candidate running for Congress right now to go with your idea. It's like, well, slow down. slow down. I don't have that kind of influence right now.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was very timid when it came to me with sociocracy, because I like to trust things that I can understand. And at first, it was so different. It was hard for me to understand it. And I like to see, like, try to figure out, like, would this work? I'm trying to envision, like, it, like, in action. It took me, like I said, a couple of months actually going to meetings and actually trying it out to actually understand how it actually works, because it was very difficult for me to picture it in my head, so but once you actually get there and it's there and you're doing it, and you kind of like, and it slowly grew on me as I did it, because things started feeling a little more natural and feeling a little more like flowing, because at that time in the people's New York People's Party, which again is the New York People's Assembly now, we were using the standard Robert's Rules of Order. So I went from using Robert's Rules of Order and then going into groups of sociocracy. And it really showed me, like, the difference between, Robert's Rules of Order and sociocracy. Where Robert's Rules of Order, you could literally, like, ram things through, where the chair, that person who runs the meetings, really holds a lot of power. He really gets to, he could really essentially pick and choose what he wants to get covered. Whereas a sociocracy, I mean, the facilitator is only there to, like, clarify and to make sure the meeting's running in order, but his main goal is to make sure everybody has their voice heard. I mean, we don't really care getting something done as much as we care about making sure everybody is listened to. Go ahead, Jess.
I mean, you have to find a balance, right? So, I mean, right, we're talking, I mean, sociocracy is kind of the extreme end of the spectrum of like making sure everybody's voice gets heard, like finding the most consensus, really diving into the details. But that tends to become a very slow process, where the other extreme end of the spectrum is simple majority, where it's just like you get 50% plus one, and then you can ignore everybody else and you can just ram things through. And that's what we have in Congress right now, except Congress is even more at a standstill somehow. They have majorities in Congress and they still can't get stuff done. It's insane. And so then it's like, and then you can kind of tweak your mechanics to land anywhere in the middle there, depending on what your prioritizations are. That's one of the things that we're looking at with like an automated facilitation, right? So you don't have a person facilitating, it's all automatic. They're like straightforward rules. It's done by a computer, and like there are extra mechanisms you can throw in to balance things out or whatever. But there was something that we experimented with. We didn't really like the exact format that they had set up, but it gave us a lot of ideas about like, well, here's like probably what a much better version of this would look like. That helps to keep a conversation moving, and like make progress, and also force people to be concise with their points, and also prevent people from filibustering. So that's kind of the thing that we're looking into. And plus, then when you have that, then you can scale it, right? Because now you don't have to be looking for professional facilitators and communication professionals and all this stuff. Once you have that really difficult part just like automated, then it allows you to just have a million different groups of people, and you can do all sorts of interesting things with it. So that's what we're looking at. But
That's
I have to
awesome,
get
Seth.
going.
You're absolutely correct. That's why I kind of
Yeah.
I wanted to include the Washington's D3 model to show that there are, systems that are in between, not just the two ends. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And I really hope your automated facilitation system works out, and I would like to see it in action. That was awesome.
Sass, before you go, the thing you were talking about having controversial conversation one-on-one, but like recorded. Let's do that. I have an idea for that. So the the whole RCV like star thing, like I'm not I don't know a heck of a lot about it, but what if like I would like to have a conversation with you about RCV versus star, and we could record that and see if we can gain a consensus on that.
So that conversation has been had and it's been recorded. Really what I'm getting at is more this like people falling down the spiral of supremacist ideology. That is kind of the most extreme thing that we run into when it's really difficult. It's really easy to get blocked by kind of the things that person might say, such as certain races are biologically superior to other races. Like those are really difficult things for a lot of people to move past or to just let go. But those are really crucial, important parts of that conversation on how you move forward and how you actually form a connection with those folks and you work on that progress, and also understanding that it's not necessarily going to happen in one conversation. And that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. This kind of very personal, you're dealing with this kind of much more extreme thing, whereas like star versus RCV is like this almost academic debate, and that's not what I'm getting at. I'm talking about something that's much more fundamental and ground level.
Yeah. So I want to get to those extreme differences, but I think can be difficult at first, and it can potentially sort of blow up. So my idea is just like sort of start small and build up to like sort of topics with maybe some more heat in them, and then in terms of RCV versus star, like what I mean at a different level. That it sounds to me, I haven't studied the topic very much myself, so so I'm not that clear on it, but it seems to me there's a lot of agreement about STAR. But the level I'm talking about is like, not the theoretical level, but if we're talking about what should we be doing in the world, what should we be focusing on? For example, is there any is there a higher level when you take the whole messy world in there? Is there a higher level of viability for RCV? Like, will not the question, is it theoretically better, but the question, like, starting today at this point in time, if we had a certain amount of effort that we could devote to RCV versus devote to STAR, what would happen? And I think that's a question which is extremely uncertain, and I'm
No,
not.
it's
I'm
extremely
not.
certain.
It's
I'll tell
extremely.
you because RCV doesn't solve any problems. It doesn't
Well,
solve any of the problems that we're trying to solve.
it does solve some of them.
No,
It-
it doesn't.
Doesn't it
Okay,
solve
so
the
here's-
whole?
It
Spoiler
solves some of the
effect?
problems. It increases voter buy-in. It makes more people satisfied with the result. And
Temporarily, and that's only if
it-
it's a result that makes sense to people, which it often doesn't in races in U.S. elections where RCV has been used when there have been 3 or more competitive factions. There's been a monotonicity failure every time, and half of those have led to repeals.
okay, but define 3 competitive factions where you have 3. Most of the time, though, it's the Green Party, whatever, who they feel that they're heard, and then their vote goes to the Democrat, and then they're still happy that the Republican didn't win. So it increases their satisfaction with I'm using Maine 2nd District from 2018 as the example here. But so increases their satisfaction. It also can reduce the negative campaigning because it's not such a zero-sum game. So I agree with you, it doesn't solve the duopoly at all, but it does have some positive aspects.
So it
But
sounds like we do have some controversy. We are coming up on time, and controversy is exactly what we want. So this is wonderful. This is what I mean. Maybe we should, Seth, the 3 of us, like, have a little debate on this for the purpose of learning
Can I get on
how
this?
to resolve differences.
Oh, can I get in on this?
Yes, and then after Nissan, we'll close the meeting, and then we can talk more after the meeting if you guys want to.
Go Nissan.
Nissan, go ahead.
No, I said I said when you have the controversial
yeah,
meeting, can I get in on that? That sounds fun. I want to.
That sounds fun.
Okay,
Awesome.
I have
So-
to get going. I really do, but I do need to say that, like, the claims of real world improvements for things like representation and voter satisfaction are overplayed, and they're not sustainable under RCV. And RCV has caused a lot of problems that are not talked about. And there are other major issues, things like election security, that are super, super important that get overlooked. And I've made the argument before that it's a step backwards. And again, it's like we're kind of getting to this second phase of okay, now RCV advocates have stopped trying to argue the theoretical points because they just can't because it just does so poorly. So now they're trying to make these claims about what happens in the real world, but those are also false claims, and they don't stand up to scrutiny when you actually go and look at the data. And we're currently, a bunch of us, including me, is working on collecting this data into more centralized ways and making it easier to see and parse through, because currently it's very spread out in different reports and studies and different sites and all this all over the place. But we're working on getting it together to make it easier to find this stuff. Tag Annie Callan on Twitter. She's a volunteer with the Equal Vote Coalition. She recently put something really cool together. I don't have the link to it right now, but
Can you put the name in the chat?
Annie Callan.
Yeah, Seth, you're probably right about that, and I love the passion, and I think it would be valuable to have like a little debate where we can, where we can work through it. Can we together show clearly what the reality is and where the focus should be? Would you be willing to give that a shot?
Yes, if I can find time. Okay, I gotta go.
Okay, and we'll call the meeting here. And so thanks everyone for listening to Democracy 3.0. Welcome to join in, and we'll see everybody next week. Welcome to hang out after the meeting.